Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Drinks Coach. I'm Joe Wadsack, your host for this evening. If you saw the last episode, you'll see that I've still got the wall chart up because this episode was also recorded before we found out whether England or Italy won the European Championships. The reason why I'm filming this now is, as I mentioned before, my ability to drink quite a lot of alcohol during football games is well documented. And also, I noticed there was 3 very good value sparkling wines in my fridge, and I want to get them open early. Is that such a crime? I don't know. Lowercase Drinks Coach, lowercase Vine Sack. Those are my calling cards. Please ask me anything you like about this show. You are watching YouTube. Thanks again to my lovely wife for these lovely signs, which have done the test for over a year now. Do hit the bell to subscribe. Every subscription counts. Thank you very much. But also, you can be alerted of new shows as they come up. This is a topic which I have broached before, maybe more than once already, but I will keep on doing it because you're still not listening. People aren't buying these wines, so I'll carry on talking about them. This is the wonderful world of Crémant. We have fantastic sparkling wines in this country, you know that, and I've showed them all the time. If you look at some wonderful wines in this country, from the very top end, Cote and Seeley, Hamilton, Hattoney Valley, right down to Balfour, there's many, right down to some very, very good value offerings too. But you can buy really, really good sparkling wine in France. You just have to avoid champagne, that's all. So we have 3 to look at here, and I've put them in kind of reverse order. So they are going... No, not the right order, in fact. This is Crémant d'Alsace. This is from the Alsace, which is that region sort of squidged between Germany and France at the top by the Vosges Mountains. She'll come on to that momentarily. We have Crémant de Loire. Yes, I've banged on about it. And don't forget, Davies Wines sell a fantastic one called Long Loire, which I've recommended, I think, at least once on this channel before, but I want to show a different one because it's very widely available, and at this time of year you don't want to have to travel too far for decent sparkling wine. And this is sold at Tesco's and it's terrific. We have a kind of a handmade cheeky little number at the end, made by a friend, very very good friend of most of the people in the UK wine industry, because he's a Brit gone abroad, having it large, bought himself a chateau in Bordeaux called Chateau Bordeaux. And I didn't know he made a sparkling until this year when he sent me a box of wines to try. Yes, indeed, I didn't pay for these. But this is his current release, and I thought it'd be nice to try it on camera. So what kind of prices are we looking at? Well, this one here, which has been being brought in by a large importer, but as to this day, I don't think it has any big listings. But if you look it up, it's called Giesweiler, and it's from Crémant de Ribeauvillé. You can see at the bottom it says Ribeauvillé. Ribeauvillé is the most gorgeous town, this chocolate box town, which looks just like Asterix. If you ever read the Asterix and Obelix cartoon books as a child. And it's full of nests with storks in. And storks don't have vocal cords, so they clap their beaks and go clap, 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 clap. And it's full of brilliant, delicious food, tarte à l'oignon, choucroute, and the most stunning wines. And around Ribeauvillé are some of the absolute great vineyards, not only of the Alsace, but the whole of France. Close to Une, at Trimbach is very nearby, which is the finest Riesling in France. This is made by the Co-op. Sparkling wines made in the Alsace are common when you're there. We never really see them here because we've got so much choice. I think the worry is that supermarket buyers are afraid that they're going to make things more difficult just by adding more choice to the mix, which in some cases actually is kind of true, especially when you're buying lots and lots of, let's say, Rioja from a really good producer, Rioja Carver, and they offer you some other stuff on the cheap. So it's difficult to find these small sparkling wines in places like the Alsace and find an excuse to put them on the shelf because they're often not the same value. But to the consumer direct, they flipping well are. There's another producer, which is rather unfortunately called Domaine Pfister. That's Pfister. And this is a wine which is brought out by the Carve Co-op. It's one of the better known premium sparkling wines in the Alsace. Now, there are Alsatian wines that most people kind of don't come across. People know, I think, if you know a little bit about wine in Alsace, that they have tall, thin bottles, and they make things like Riesling, primarily, Gewürztraminer, Pinot Gris, That's kind of where it stops. But you've got Muscat d'Alsace, you've got Pinot Blanc, you've got Sylvaner. Now, it's often the case that the sparkling wines are made from like Sylvaner, which is high in acid, and blended with other things, what they call an Edelsvicker, a blend of different varieties. And it was kind of, I don't know, it's a sparkling wine almost merely to mop up some of the lesser wines. But this fella here is 100% Pinot Noir. And people forget that Alsace is a premium Pinot Noir producing region. It doesn't make Pinot Noirs like they do in Burgundy or California or Australia. They are lighter, more brazenly fruity, like bright cherries, and some of them are very pale in colour. But there are absolute experts at it. Gratin Weiss, Marcel Dice. There are people that are really top producers of Pinot Noir. As long as you understand they're slightly different clones, they're a very different style of wine altogether. But they are made from a Pinot Noir which lends itself rather well to making sparkling wine. That sounds very strange, you say. Well, it's not that strange, is it? I mean, 75% of all champagne is made from Pinot Noir. This is just champagne made up the road, really, if you think about it. Now, if you bought this in a normal shop, I was just looking desperately for a contemporary price. If you're buying it sort of like on the continent or buying it sort of like independent of the UK, I think you're probably looking at something like £14 or something. If you bought this in France, if you're driving through the Alsace and you picked a bottle of this up, it's £6. Yeah, that's right. You heard me correctly. It's £6. Look at the colour. It's got a lovely pale straw colour to it. There's some sign of age. Not a huge amount, I don't suppose. Has a lovely, bright, brazen freshness to it. It doesn't smell of red grapes at all. It smells of do you think what kind of fruit that is? It smells of kind of like star fruit, or something verging on tropical, green mango kind of things, you know. Fresh cut, slightly unripe pear. Delicious, great acidity, really pure acidity. The acidity is what surprised me first. Because it's made from Pinot Noir, it has a shape that works rather well. Pinot Noir, what people don't realise is when you drink Pinot Noir, for whatever reason, it tends to feel like you don't get the same attack as you do with something like a Blanc de Blanc with Champagne Chardonnay, for example. When you drink Chardonnay, it hits you like turning on an electric switch. It's like, pang! Pinot Noir sort of like kind of builds in the mouth a bit like lighting an oil lamp. It's sort of, and it builds up. And this wine, as I'm talking to you, is getting more intense and tangier and fresher and zingier, and it's really making me want to dive in for another gobful. Hell yeah. Wow. Yeah, now I'm getting red apples and slight crab apple note to it. It's now starting to taste disturbingly champagne-like, like an Aube champagne, which are usually 100% Pinot Noir too. That is an absolute banger. Can someone list this, please? Tesco, Morrison's, Davies. Can you please? This is really flipping delicious. Please, thank you very much. Moving on to the next wine. Don't forget, I'm only opening these so I've got something to drink during the football. I do hope it's a good result. I was watching some of the top tens they were doing with like Alan Shearer and Gary Lineker talking about who were going to be the great players of the football European Championships, and they go, oh well, Mbappe's sure to be one of the great influencers. Mbappe, he can't do any wrong. Well, got a lot of things drastically wrong. I think we all did. Okay, this is a wine made by a company and a family which I'm very fond of, which is the Champagne family of Alfred Gratin. And they have I don't know if the Loire wine came first, it may well have done, but this is a wine that my mum and dad, when I used to live in a pub, a gastro pub, and it wasn't mucking about, it wasn't chicken in a basket completely, it was proper dining, but this is Gratin and Crémant de Loire, and I've told you about this a lot, but the Loire wines offer such astonishing value for money. Particularly, as I said, there were many champagne houses, including Bollinger, who actually own sparkling wine houses as well in the Loire. And you're buying a wine, if you're buying Alfred Gratin champagne, which is aged in wood, looking at the thick end of 40 quid for their basic wine. Bollinger now is well over £50. But they make these wines that cost 15 quid or less. This is in Tesco's for 12 squid. £12 in Tesco's, everyone. You can go and buy a box, just back the car up and put the cases in the car and off you go. Why I chose this one particularly is because I know that Gratin has a very, very strong reputation of using a particular grape variety in their wines. By the way, Tesco sells a rosé as well. It's 12 quid too. Absolutely delicious. And we all know that rosé sparkling wine carries a premium. So that's need to know only. Fantastic wine. So this wine is made from Chenin Blanc, which is the most famous white variety in the Loire after Sauvignon Blanc probably. And there's some Chardonnay. But in between those two, it's about 40%, I think, Chenin, and 40% Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is a red variety. It couldn't be any redder. It's the dark red variety that all of what we call the Carmenet varieties are related to and originated from. Back over 1,000 years, the one variety that was in that area of France was Cabernet Franc, which is a black variety, and it then mutated into Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, Carmenet, Petit Verdot, etc., etc. But it started off as Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc, again, is a red variety, but of course, if you squeeze it, the juice inside's white. And I happen to think that Cabernet Franc makes fantastic sparkling wine. So this is 40% Chenin Blanc, rich, waxy variety, 40% Cabernet Franc, a red variety which gives fantastic Bauhaus rectangular edges to the wine, gives it a crisp brightness and a focus to the wine, and then a bit of sexy Chardonnay on top for kind of that's the bronzer. Okay. Now Gratin may have a top cuvee called Cuvée Flamme, and the last time I looked, Cuvée Flamme was 90% Cabernet Franc, 10% Chenin Blanc. How cool is that? It comes in this really garish gothic bottle, which I love. Anyway, so what do we think? It's just so pure. It's got a wonderful purity to it. Compared to this, it doesn't have the same rigid, grab your attention bite, which I kind of like, if I'm honest. This, because the Chardonnay and the Chenin and the ripeness, is a bit more smooth, a bit more honeyed. It's a bit more sliding down the smooth slopes. It's not as... does that make any sense to anyone? Does to me. But this wine is a cracking example again of why Crémant de Loire and Saumur Brut in the Loire are arguably the most painfully underrated sparkling wines, not just in France, but probably the whole world. Thank you. The Chardonnay actually gives the wine a real sense of sweetness. I'm not sure whether this wine's got particularly high residual sugar, but I think it would appeal. It's a really good gateway drug away from Prosecco, okay, which is sweet. And this wine doesn't taste sweet, but it has enough sweetness on the finish, enough fruitiness that you could wean people off some of the lesser quality wines from Prosecco. It's not to say they're all bad. Some of them are very good. Right. Finally, my little chat of three. Crémant d'Alsace, Crémant de Loire. What are we up to next? Crémant de Bordeaux. Yeah, even Bordeaux makes sparkling wine. Everyone's in on it these days. This is made by a chap called Gavin Quinney. Gavin and Angela. Gavin was involved in telecoms and ironically bought this vineyard, Chateau Bauduc, off a chap called David Thomas, who I worked for in his vineyards before Gavin bought it. And I didn't meet Gavin for some 10, 15 years after that, which is wonderful. So it's wonderful to know that he's done so much renovations to the place, and the wines are vastly improved. But to make sparkling wine, 2018 was a very, 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 very hot year in Bordeaux, and in some places intolerably so. But it was very weird and very complex around this area, which is kind of north of a place called Entre-de-Mer. Well, it's in Entre-de-Mer, but it's kind of top end of it. And it's very, very close, in fact, to Saint-Emilion and Bran. You're probably only about 5 miles away from Saint-Emilion. So if you imagine Bordeaux is a city, which has the Gironde, which is the big peninsula with the big estuary, and then you've got a river that goes straight down called the Garonne, and you've got the Dordogne, which goes out this way. And it's on the Dordogne, about 25 minutes drive out of the city. And this wine is made And there can't be many sparkling Semillons around from Semillon. It's 100% Semillon. Bravo, Gavin, for doing something different again. I just want to say, Gavin sent me a case of wines. I will be talking about the 2020 Chateau Bauduc Sauvignon Blanc sometime soon, which he very kindly sent me 2 bottles of. Because in a recent tasting where I tasted blind 260 Bordeaux wines under £25, it was an absolute barnstormer of a white wine. Absolutely delicious. I couldn't think of anything on earth I'd rather eat oysters to, than Bauduc 2020 Sauvignon Blanc. Until I tasted in his box a bottle of his 2019. Now, you don't drink Sauvignon Blanc when it's old. And the 2019 had a chunk of Semillon in it, which is a secret weapon, I think, highly underused in Entremer. I made wine in a chateau very close to where Chateau Bauduc is, called Chateau Neuf, or Chateau de Castelnau. Gavin may well know, my ex-boss. But the 2019, again, a very warm year, was a fantastic vintage in Bordeaux. And that wine is, in fact, the house wine at all of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants and all of Rick Stein's restaurants. It can't be that bad, can it? Well, I'm telling you right now, the 2019, which I would normally assume is, it's probably losing its freshness, let's go on to 20. Absolute banger, an absolute banger wine. So if you see the words Chateau Bauduc on a Bordeaux wine, and it's just a small producer, small property, you can certainly buy the white wines and the rosé, which I really liked, very unusual, very herby rosé, with absolute assurity. He makes the most fantastically good white wines. He's a small producer, so he's going to have vintages where things are tricky, but I've yet to drink a wine I didn't like. So thank you, Gavin. This is... That's absolutely... This is the quintessence, the epitome of Semillon. Semillon is a great variety. There are 2 big white varieties in Bordeaux. Sauvignon, which is king, and it's only when you see what the French do with it you realise how well Sauvignon can age. But we see Semillon in this country as an age-worthy variety because we've been buying it, certainly in some cases, either as a dessert wine, because it's what makes very, very good sweet wines in Bordeaux, but also a wine from Australia, where 2-3 hours drive north of Sydney in the Hunter Valley, they make Semillons which are only 10-11% alcohol, and they can age for 30 years, 40 years. They're insane. What happens? Well, Semillon is a very thin-skinned variety that when it's young, it has very little aromatic. It can be quite floral. It can be very lemony, if I'm going to choose a citrus spectrum, not lime. And give it 2 or 3 years, it's like it goes into a pupa and then comes out as a butterfly. And that's what's happened here. This wine, you can see from the colour, it's got that lovely kind of golden green hue that Semillon almost always has with some bottle age. But it just smells like there's this wonderful smell of, palpable smell of honeycomb, like chestnut honey, like proper honeycomb. Beeswax, almost. This wine came from a vintage where acidity was very hard to come by, but they obviously picked early enough that they didn't ruin their crop. It seems to me that Gavin did something very, very clever and something very brave, and that is he looked at the numbers and said, I can't leave any longer, we've got to pick now. So he ended up looking at this tank of wine going, I've got some Semillon, it's 10.5% alcohol and it's fully phenologically ripe. What the hell do I do with it? Let's make a sparkling wine. If I'm right, Gav, I think it was an extremely cool move on your part. This wine is quite delicious. You can go online and buy wines direct from Chateau Bauduc, and this wine is £16. And for a handmade curiosity, which is at least champagne good, I think it deserves your patronage. There you go. Despite the fact that he's a Chelsea supporter, I like him very much. Crémant d'Alsace. If you find this country you're probably looking just over a shade over £12. £12 for the Crémant de Loire, and £16 for Chateau Bauduc, Crémant de Bordeaux, 100% Semillon. Thank you very much. I can't wait for the football. Don't spoil it for me. No spoilers, no spoilers.